Welcome to Voices of IIS, a space to learn about the wonderful people who work at IIS, explore fresh perspectives, and hopefully get inspired. Before joining IIS's graduate program in Islamic Studies and Humanities, Dr. Amier Saidula was a state prosecutor in charge of international cases in the High Procuratorate of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in China. Dr. Saidula holds a Master's of Law from SOAS, University of London, and a PhD in Anthropology from the University of Edinburgh. His research interests include the history, culture, and traditions of Muslims in China in general, and the Ismaili community in particular. He is currently a Senior Research Associate in Central Asian Studies at IIS. Welcome, Amier, and thank you for joining us. I'd like for us to start at the beginning, if that's possible. Can you share with us what it was like for you growing up in China?
It is strange how memory works. Some moments remain vivid, others fade, and sometimes what we think we remember has already been reshaped by time. For me, looking back wasn't just about recalling events. It was about revisiting what they meant, how they changed me, and how they shaped the direction my life took. And that process can be both rewarding and sometimes a bit exhausting, because memory isn't always reliable. It blends with imagination, and before you know it, the lines between the two begin to blur. But with time and distance, things start to make sense. You begin to see how all the little moments, even the ones that felt random or painful, connect one small step at a time. So, shall we take a little walk down the memory lane together?
I would love that.
Thank you. I was born in Kashgar into a Ismaili family, and Kashgar is one of the oldest ancient Silk Road cities, one of the capitals of Karakhani dynasty. And I inherited this Ismaili identity. But my story is not your typical Ismaili story, even in that context, because my background's a bit complicated. I have multiple heritages. My family connection stretches from different countries. And until I was 5, I was brought up by my maternal grandmother, a Uyghur Sunni Muslim, non-practicing. The non-practicing part is not by choice. She was a Communist Party member, a high-ranking official with the Kashgar prefecture government. So religious was not factored in our upbringing. It was not a part of my childhood shaping. And I can say the same about my parents and my generation as a whole. They were secular, educated party members, civil servants with the government. Our exposure to spirituality and religion was limited to this so-called informal religious practices, which the Chinese government regards as ethnic culture rather than religion. Like we visit some shrines, we attend the annual pilgrimage, religious festivals, the prayer part, and the religious part of life cycle rituals. And that's it. That's the extent of everything. We have no content. And both of my parents were government officials, and my father was a local politician with Kashgar and Tajik Autonomous County. That's where the Ismailis live as a compact community. And he walked his way around the ranks, and he retired from the position of the chairman of People's Congress, the local parliament, if you like. But my mother was a versatile, independent-minded intellectual. She was a writer, a film director, and dance instructor, literature teacher, and she even played in her own films. And she was a musician as well. She played accordion, she played guitar, the ethnic thing. And she had a profound impact on me. I didn't realize then, but I somehow modeled my life after her because I grew up with her books. In China at the time, the books we had access to were mostly political books, but she somehow managed to hide a collection of literature And I read in abundance without any direction, whatever I get my hands on. And it also inspired me to try my hand in creative writing at a very young age. And I published my first short story when I was 12 in a local newspaper, provincial newspaper. And I did good at school as well. I passed the national entrance exam with a very high mark. And I was accepted to my first choice, the Northwestern University of Political Science and Law in Xi'an, China. That's another ancient capital of 6 Chinese dynasties. That's where the Silk Road starts. At school, at the university, I did good as well. I had performed academically very good. And I also had a very active social life. I graduated at top 10 of my cohort of 470 students. And I had a very active social life. I was the leading guitarist and lead singer in our boy band. Mm-hmm. And at the end of university, I was headhunted by the High People's Procuratorate of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. They sent an official. They had one vacancy. They needed one. He interviewed quite a few students. I don't know how many. I was the last one on that day. The interview went very smooth. He didn't ask anything about my academic performances, anything. Just, I think he saw everything he wanted, because we have this personal file thing. They review your files, then decide whether. And at the end, they said, it's late, let's go for dinner. Can I invite you for dinner? As a student on tight budget, free meal, why not? Mm-hmm. We went out across the road to a Muslim restaurant. He ordered food, beers. And I said, you are old enough to drink with me. And he offered a toast, and he said, congratulations, the job is yours. Authorized to confirm it with you. Finish your thing here and come and join us. Joining them, what I did, at the end of September, I bought a train ticket. It was a 48-hour train journey from Xi'an to Urumqi. Then, now they have this high-speed train thing. And I arrived at 7 a.m. They sent someone to pick me up from the train station and took me to the accommodation allocated by the government. By 10 o'clock, I was sitting behind the desk, started working as a state prosecutor. And I shared the office with one of the deputy head of the department. And that's where everyone started. I started as an internal admin. We call it Neijing in Chinese. That is due process for the new recruits. You have to know, they give you a year to know the institutional structures, the procedural requirements. And one of the success measures were to make sense the statistical data we acquired monthly from the entire province, analyze them, and produce a monthly report. It usually took 6 months to a year to satisfy your boss. But I was quick. In Urumqi, I didn't have much social life. I focused on my work. I produced my first report after 3 months, and it took me another 3 months to convince my boss I was ready for the next phase, which meant on-the-job training from grassroots onward. They send you out for 2 years, and I was sent to Kashgar, the place of my birth. I spent my first year in Kashgar Municipal People's Procuratorate as a trainee state prosecutor. And that's where I had my first court experience, my first trial. And I still vividly remember that experience, even though it has been a long time ago. I remember I couldn't sleep or eat or even drink for 24 hours. But when the hearing started, everything went very smooth. It took only 20 minutes for me to win the case. I was all prepared. It was a very simple case, a larceny case. I memorized the entire file. Mm. And that set me into a very good start from the get-go. And in the subsequent 6 years as a state prosecutor, I did not lose a single case. And as a disclaimer, it's not all down to merit, but the institutional structure made sure, as a state prosecutor representing the state in a state court, you will win. Mm. But I worked for my cases, so I can take half of the credit. And the second year, they sent me to the Kashgar Prefectural Intermediate People's Procuratorate as a trainee state prosecutor. That's where I learned to handle some sophisticated, complex cases involving government officials, corruptions, foreign parties, capital punishment cases. I survived the 2 years. I came back. Upon arrival, they assigned me to the Department of Public Indictment as an assistant state prosecutor. That was at the end of the 2 years. And one scenario, when I was in Kashgar training, I used my spare time to polish my English. I laid the foundation at university. For ethnic minorities, we were not required to learn foreign language. Mandarin was considered our second language, but I was not satisfied with that. I taught myself English, and that 2 year in Kashgar offered the chance to polish it and improve it. By the time I was back, my English was quite good, and I took TOEFL exam. I got very good score, good enough to apply for a scholarship and study abroad, but I had other plans. I didn't do that. And that linguistic advantage actually helped, also reflected in my career development. In the provincial institutions like that, you go through the 6 tiers before you retire at the ministry or provincial minister level. In an average, it takes 5 years to move between one tier to another. I somehow managed to move 3 tiers in 6 years. It was quite good because of, again, this linguistic advantage. Other than English, I also spoke some of the local languages. And I also hit the glass ceiling for the non-party members. That's as high as I can go without joining the Communist Party. And my superiors were very insistent, and I was summoned to the office of one of our vice presidents. And they don't mince their words. He said, if you really want to go forward, there is no way around it. Join the party and nothing's stopping you. And he said, why didn't you start? It has been 3 years. I explained, I gave him my reasons. I convinced him, and he said, how long do you need to have a result with him, whichever way you're going? I said, give me 6 months. If it doesn't happen, then I will be it. I said, okay, 6 months. He was very understanding. And also, I think they also needed me. I was the only person who can actually interview foreigners in English, take their statements, make them sign it, and make a case against them. And they were, at the end of the 6 months, that's the same president, he dropped by my office with the typed application letter for the party committee. He said, okay, you had your 6 months, and now hand copy this letter once a month and submit it to the party committee. In 6 months, you will be candidate party member, and we will assign you 2 mentors. Another 6 months, you will be full party member, and then there's nothing stopping you in your career path. And it was at this very critical juncture I received IIS acceptance letter.
You have preempted the next question because you have this path laid out before you, and it's quite structured, and you're doing very well on it. And then suddenly, everything changes. And so how is it that you heard about IIS, and what inspired you actually to apply to the graduate program in Islamic Studies and Humanities, which is an entire pivot to where your career had taken you thus far?
Absolutely. Thank you for this. It's a very relevant question. And it also involves a 7 years long journey from me finding about IIS and enrolling in the program as a student. And everything, I think, in the retrospect, I think the universe, should we call it, was pushing me into one direction. It's just every time when I wanted to give up, something happened. In summer, when I was training in Kashgar again, one day dropped at the office of a friend of mine, another Ismaili guy. He works for a state-run travel agency. I noticed he had 2 clients, South Asian-looking clients. He was working with them. I waited and I overheard their conversation. The couple, they were a young couple. They said they needed transportation to cross to Pakistan because China was just opening up. All the travel agency was owned by the state. And they said they needed needed to go to Pakistan for Dida. The moment I heard the word Dida, I jumped. They said, "You are Ismaili?" Yes. And I said, "I'm Ismaili. The guy you're talking to is Ismaili as well." And they were excited, and they were Canadian Ismailis. And we took them for lunch. And I asked them, "Can you send me some literatures? I pay for it, because we have nothing here." And the husband said, "I have a better idea. Your English is so good. Why don't you apply for GPish?" And that's how I learned about this IIS. And he introduced IIS, but in the excitement, I even forgot to ask him how to get in touch with IIS. I know it's based in London. When he left, and I found myself, I had no way to reaching out. Then again, when I was looking for access to IIS, how to communicate, something again happened. I was invited to a banquet organized by the local custom officer to honor some of their Pakistani clienteles. And in Kashgar, most of the custom officers were Ismailis at the time. And I was sat next to a gentleman called Zafar Iqbal, one of their Pakistani guests. He was the head of northern areas of transportation. They called it NATCO, because they wanted linguistic skill to communicate with them. During the conversation, we found out that we had two common languages. He was Wahi as well. I spoke Wahi as well. And I explained the situation, and he said, "Let me see, maybe I can do something, but I can't promise you anything." And he left. I didn't take it seriously. I was still looking for other options. After 6 months or 8 months, he comes back to China. By then, I was back in Urumqi. He comes with a copy of application form from IIS. He leaves it with my friend at the custom office. He posted it to me. I photocopied the application, made a few copies. I prepared all the required documents and waited for my time to sending out was not, again, problematic directly, so I have to find another way. And again, at this point, another person appeared. It was a Pakistani businessman, Ali Beg. Once I helped him to shift some of his pistachios. I introduced him to a client. He said, "It's my payback time." He knows my story. He said, "Why don't you come with me to Pakistan? I'll pay all of your expenditures. I provide you with accommodation, everything. You don't have to pay." He knows our salary, etc. Even though the job comes with a lot of perks, but the salary was very low. And that's what we did. He helped me to secure a visa to Pakistan, and we traveled to Pakistan together by road, Hunza, Islamabad, Karachi. And he introduced me to Ghulam Ali. Ghulamuddin, another Wahi Ismail senior, a community leader. And he knew everyone in the institutions. He took me around. He read Jamaat Khanas, AKD, and representatives. The chief representative of AKD at the time was a lawyer. We hit up immediately. We had a lot to discuss. We socialized multiple times. Long story short, at the end of the month, when nothing happened, they said, "Sorry, because we have no jurisdiction over the Ismailis in China. We can't help you. We wish you good luck, but we will keep our eyes open. If we hear anything, we will be in touch." And I came back. Well, I didn't give up. Still looking for ways to send the application form. And again, the universe came to my rescue. One day I went to visit my brother at Xinjiang University. He was a professor. He is a professor of classic literature. I met two Russian scholars at his place, Bokhsho Lashkarbekov and Stiplin Kaminsky. They're both linguists. They were doing some field work among the Tajiks in China. And it happens, Bokhsho himself is originally from Badakhshan, and he's another Wahi speaker, Ismaili, based in Moscow. After hearing my story, he said, "I actually can help maybe." He said, "Because I know people in Moscow, I know people in London. Why don't you give me a copy of your application form and his supporting documents? I will make sure it will find it." And I gave him the documents, and I waited, and I gradually forgot about that. A year passed because I didn't hear anything from him. And after a year, one day, my brother calls me again. He said, "We have some news, drop by." And he said, Your application made it to IIS. They reviewed, they accepted you. Now we have to find a way to get the acceptance letter. May 2005, I got the letter, and I went to travel to Beijing to apply for visas, and we needed some additional documents. Then I had to call IIS. The receptionist, I think it was Anna, she put me through to Devji, Faisal Devji, professor. And he was very supportive. He understood. He provided the additional documents we required. And with that, I secured a visa. And by September 10th, I got my visa. 13, I was in London. I started my life in GP.
Talk about the universe conspiring. You keep on mentioning it, but quite honestly, that is an accurate reflection of your journey.
So, as we discussed the other time, I think there was a hand.
Yeah.
Slightly.
Yeah. And now at this stage, we're coming to the end of 2025, and you've been associated with the Institute for 2 decades. Can you share with us any moments or achievements that stand out for you over the course of the 2 decades as perhaps the most meaningful?
Okay, before we come to that, can I add one more scenario? Because how I ended up as a research associate, because I was planning to go back to China. That was the agreement with my work unit at the time. And that's what I was planning to do. And I survived the 2 years GP schooling and did a law degree as I promised with SOAS in public international law. And I was planning to go back. While I was waiting for my results in the summer, Olga, Professor Nanji, is assistant. She came and said, Professor wanted to have a word. I dropped by and he asked about my plan, etc. And I explained the blah, blah, blah. I said, have you thought about joining us? We have nobody from IIS, from China. And if you're interested, we can arrange something. He said, don't give me your answer immediately. Sleep over it and come back to me when you have one. And I went back. I consulted with my folks back home. Everyone was on board. It was an easy decision. Then I said, yes. And that's how, and that's how I ended up as I started as an intern in 2004. And full payroll in 2005, and it has been 20 years.
That is an achievement. 2 decades. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Now if you asked about anything stands out as achievement.
Yeah.
I think there's quite a few, but one of the things I value the most is that IIS provides a platform to hold the mirror into myself, dissect myself and identify myself. I realized what happened is that I came from a very conformist society, politically, culturally. Whatever I said, I did, I had no agency over that. I repeated, I was a parrot. IIS gave me a challenge to deconstruct that self and bring myself into whatever I do in my life. And now I think I have a voice, and that I think is the most proudest, a successful, what was the word you used? Achievement.
Mm-hmm. Most meaningful.
Well, what most meaningful?
Because that will impact everything that you do.
Absolutely.
Finding your voice is huge.
Absolutely, because I think I found the purpose in my life. Otherwise, I would have been a very successful state prosecutor. I would have been just another cog in the machine. Yeah, I wouldn't have had a chance to find myself. Yeah, that is, yes, my most proud achievement.
I mean, that's something really to be proud of. And okay, I have 2 questions for you, which maybe you could answer. One is, I need to know how many languages you speak, because I'm sure that is just formidable. And also, what do you love most about your work?
Let's start with the second one first.
Sure.
What I love the most, I think it challenges me. That's the bit I love. It pushes me to grow out of my comfort zone. That has never been a case in my previous life, because I was too comfortable. I know what is expected of me, and I know how to behave and how to respond, how to adjust. But here, my job every day, it takes different turns. It pushes me to broaden my horizon. Mm. Yeah. That's the part I love the most. Mm. And it allows me to intellectually grow. As for your second question, the language thing, I think we mentioned that previously. as a minority, I think it's both. I can call it a blessing in disguise. I made a living out of other people's language, not my mother tongue. And I grew up as a kid with 5 languages. And my brain somehow found the pattern. It's a very sophisticated computer, as they say. Then I taught myself quite a few languages. Now I speak roughly around 14 or 15 languages.
Wow.
But most of them are interrelated languages, even though they cross 3 linguistic families like Sino-Tibetans, Altaic languages, and Indo-Europeans. But most of those languages are interrelated languages. Yeah. And each language opens different window for me because language is a philosophy as well. It's not just a means of communication. So I see the world through those languages as well.
In which language do you dream?
It depends. Last time I checked what happens. It depends on which language I was working at that time. If I read, for instance, in Chinese for a week, everything shifts to Chinese and start to translate everything from Chinese. But if I focus in English, then the other way around, then I have to do everything in English and translate into other language. So you can't be consistent in one language. Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Before we wrap up, at this stage in your journey, what exciting things are you looking forward to in the upcoming months?
Oh, yeah, again, thank you. There's quite a few. After toiling for 20 years in IIS, I finally managed to finish 2 monographs. One is already accepted for publication. It's coming out in the next 3 months. Another is now with Tara. It's going through external review. So that's one. And secondly, I'm working on a documentary project. I don't want to divulge too much at this stage. Sorry. But it will be exciting for the Jamaat here, back home, and even the academic community interested in Ismailis in China. Yeah, that's the things I'm looking forward to. Yes.
And I think as the audience, we're definitely looking forward to that and to hearing more about the monographs and the documentary when it is possible. Well, we look forward to hearing about it in the coming months ahead. That's all the time we have for today. A huge thank you to our guest, Amier Saidula. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. If you would like to read some of Amier's works, you can access his article, The Nizari Ismailis of China in Modern Times, on the IIS website. It's a chapter in Dr. Farhad Daftari's book, A Modern History of the Ismailis, which is available open access to download or read online for free. Thanks so much for listening. We know there are plenty of podcasts out there, and we're grateful that you've spent your time with us today. If you like this episode, make sure you follow or subscribe on Spotify or wherever you enjoy your podcasts. That's a wrap for today. I'm Selena, and you've been listening to Voices of IIS. Until next time, take care and stay inspired.